If you've ever been around someone who's really gifted at praying, it can be really humbling. Like, so often, any of us might approach praying with this sort of like really narrow focus, sort of self-centered, here's the 5 things that I want most, God. And sometimes people who are really gifted at praying have a way of identifying needs we didn't even think of identifying people for whom we should be praying that we had never even thought of. I can remember earlier in my life meeting somebody who would pray with people in the hospital and would not only pray for the person who was in the hospital bed for their healing or for their recuperation, but also thought, what about all the people who come into this room, the doctors and the nurses? Maybe they need to be prayed for so that they can helpfully take care of the patient. Maybe we should be asking for God to help them because they're going to be the ones, doing the tests and the surgery and giving the medicine. Or you'll think about praying for someone who's really struggling with a person they don't get along with. And sometimes our immediate reaction is just to pray for the person who you know, but someone who's really gifted in prayer has a way of going, maybe we should also be praying for the other person who's causing such trouble. What's going on in their heart, in their life that's making them so disagreeable? What is it that needs to be healed there as well? Sometimes, too, when I find myself kind of praying selfishly, God, I want this to happen, make this happen, I hear the echoes of wise voices I've known who thought maybe the thing to pray for isn't, God, make things come out the way I want, but maybe help me to see what you're trying to teach me, or help me to deal with things that aren't going to change, or help me to see why things might need to be the way they are. Some people are really, really gifted at identifying the people we easily overlook or the perspectives we've forgotten about, or can uplift the things we didn't even want to admit that we needed. I think about that not only because I can remember the wise voices of people praying in my own life who uplifted things or saw things to be asking for God for me that I didn't even want to admit that I needed or didn't even realize that I needed to have prayed for, but because Jesus does this for us as well. We get to hear this Sunday from part of Jesus' prayer for his followers. It's from Jesus' last night with his disciples in John's Gospel, in John chapter 17. And one of the things that always surprises me every time I read this chapter is this humbling awareness that Jesus sees needs in us, in the community of his followers, that maybe we wouldn't have recognized or asked for. It's so often we sort of treat prayer as, God, give me the things that will make my personal life comfortable, or give me status or money or resources, and then basically give me things that'll help me be happy as I want to define happy. And Jesus instead has this way of praying for the community of his followers to be one, to be held together in love, and that they would have, Jesus says, eternal life. Okay, we're familiar sometimes, we're comfortable with the idea, Jesus should pray that we all get eternal life, but Jesus doesn't just stop and go, so that they all live in heaven. He stops and goes, and this is eternal life, that they would know you, God, the one true God. In other words, to know God, to be drawn into relationship with God, that's what eternal life really is all about. Not just being up in some floating heavenly location, but to be in relationship with the living God, which can begin even now. Jesus has a way of helping us to see needs we didn't even realize we had, or to reframe what we thought was important. Instead of praying for Jesus' church to have power or status or influence or to dominate the world, the way plenty of folks have prayed or thought was our agenda over the centuries, Jesus simply prays that God's love would hold us together, that we'd be bound together in God's love, the same way that the Father and Jesus the Son are one, the same way God's own Trinitarian nature is really one between Father, Son, and Spirit, that we'd be held together as one in God's love. My guess is that's not on a lot of our personal lists of prayer requests. I mean, so often our prayer requests are, help this person who's sick, help me through this test, get me through this job interview or whatever. And here's Jesus praying that his community, his followers, would be held united for all the ways we are different, all the ways we see things from different perspectives, that we'd be bound together, held together in love. The thing about being around someone who's really gifted at praying is when they bring something to God in prayer that you never even thought of, it has a way of changing your perspective. I wonder if we could also let our perspective be changed by Jesus, to start to care about the things that Jesus cares about, to start to ask for the things that Jesus would have us ask for. and to allow the things that break the heart of God to break our hearts as well. This coming Sunday, we're going to look at what it means to be people that Jesus prays for, and to let Jesus' list of priorities shape the things that we think are important too. Join us for that conversation this coming Sunday. See you then.